Boyz podcast, a Dallas Cowboys fan-made podcast. Now, here are your hosts, Joe and Shane.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, damas y caballeros. Thank you for listening to the return of Dem Boyz podcast. My name is Joe Ovalle. That's at Amorn Cup of Joe on Twitter. And with me today is my co-host, one of the hardest working guys on NFL Twitter. It's your boy Shane Carter. That's at Shane Carter TX. How's it going, Shane?
It's going good, man. How you doing?
Pretty good, man. It's been a while.
Yeah, well, you know, this whole coronavirus thing going out makes it kind of hard for you to go out and see people. So I've watched a lot more film than I really want to. I got plenty of notes. I got all the players I want, all the players I don't want, ready to go. I'm excited. And the draft's been kind of like what's been getting me through each week.
Right.
I'm like, okay, I'm looking forward to this. I'm looking forward to this. And the draft is going to do wonders for me because we hadn't watched any sports in months.
Yeah.
And even though the draft always does well, it's going to do even better, both as like a release and for TV ratings overall.
Oh, I know. Everyone's just craving for any types of sports. That The Last Dance. Did you watch that last night? The Jordan documentary.
I did.
I think like the whole world was watching it.
I needed that so bad. I didn't even know I needed it because like I like watching like those 30 for 30s, and I know this isn't like a traditional 30 for 30. It's like a 10-part.
Right.
We got 2 parts per week for 5 weeks, something like that. You know, just like having something like that at all was amazing. And like I think I told you this, like Michael Jordan was my first favorite player. I watched him when I was like a little kid. He's what got me interested in basketball. And so that like that felt really good. Even though you weren't watching a live game, even though it was like little clips of recorded games, it just felt so good. It felt like a nice little release after months of tension.
Right. Yeah. There were so many great moments in those first 2 episodes. I can't wait for the rest of it. The one part that got me before we start talking about the draft is I just wanted to bring it up. The Bulls intro music when they announced the starting lineup. If anyone doesn't know the name of the actual song, it's called Sirius. Sirius. And like when that song started playing, you know, you get goosebumps. And
it was over. It was over at that point.
Right.
if you had their starting lineup and it was a home game. And that
you hear that music?
Point, the fans are do it. It's over.
It's like you hear the Undertaker's music and it's over.
You can try next week against the Bucks.
All right, so let's move on to the NFL draft, the 2020 NFL draft happening this Thursday. It's going to be a different format since everybody is working from home, practicing social distancing. It's gonna be kind of weird. I don't know what they're using. I think they're using Zoom to do the draft and for the teams to talk to each other. I don't understand why they just don't use like NFL.com's like fantasy draft thing or sleeper app or whatever. There's so many like fantasy leagues that people use every year. I feel like they could just do the same thing and everybody just be on a conference call. So hopefully,
today
go ahead.
Today they did like a little mock draft dry run of how it was all going to go down, and apparently there was already like a system issue with the first pick.
Right.
Like so the whole and that might have been like and the whole reason for that was it was like an internet issue because and it was reported that it was just kids using their tablet and made the internet slow. It's kind of like back in the day. If you want to use a computer, you better not use the phone.
Yeah. Get off the phone. I'm on the RuneScape playing, and my mom is yelling at me to get off the phone. She's trying to talk to someone. Yeah, right. Well, hopefully everything goes smoothly, at least for the first round, right? Like,
take your phones off Wi-Fi and make sure that the only thing that's on Wi-Fi is your computer system, so there's no issue there. And also, these guys are multi-millionaires. They just are GMs. You can tell me they can't afford like the high-end Wi-Fi.
Yeah, I know, right? I'm hoping they're using like hardline internet and not Wi-Fi. This is kind of like an important thing. But anyways, I'm sure they'll figure it out. It's the NFL. Okay, yeah. Well, what we're gonna do today is we're gonna break down our top 5 favorite prospects. Most of these would be in the first round. I guess you could say a couple of them could slide down a bit, but we're going to focus on the first round to see who the Cowboys can get at number 17.
And these are all like realistic like possibilities for 17.
Right.
How we see it. We're not going to put Joe Burrow there. We're not going to put Chase Young there. They're going to be gone.
Right. I'm pretty sure any of these five are pretty realistic. This is probably what's going to happen. Couple of them are, I mean, fan favorites, I think, from what I've seen on Twitter and Facebook and everywhere. And some of them are kind of boring, or at least one of them I think is kind of boring, but I think it fills a need. So you want to take the first one, Shane?
Yeah, well, not only is this like my I hope they get pick, but it's, I think, a realistic and possibly best player on the board available pick, and that's the edge rusher from LSU, Caleb Monchason. He's met with the Cowboys a number of times, and if you look at what the board's shaping up to be, the only players that like you can comfortably say won't be there at 17 are the 3 quarterbacks, the 4 offensive tackles, at least 2 receivers, Chase Young, Jeffrey Okudah, maybe Derek Brown. You know, they're going to get a great player no matter what. But Caleb Monchason is, I think, the second best edge rusher in the draft behind Chase Young, and he fits with the Cowboys' need. He's a strictly right defensive end. He plays in the 4-3 system. He's a strong guy at the point of attack. He's also really good off the edge, off the first step. He's very good in the run. This past season, he got 6.5 sacks, which isn't great, but he always put pressure on the quarterback, which causes other teammates to get sacked. He just constantly put pressure on the left tackle, which is what you want, especially if you're trying to like make the quarterback feel uneasy on his blind side. His best asset is definitely, I think, his presence in the run game. I think he had 14 tackles for loss last year. He was a big part of, if you look at their games against Clemson, Georgia, and Bama, which are the ones you want to look at, he was always there. He was always he was always the main force in slowing down the run and applying pressure to the quarterback, making them feel uncomfortable. And I think having that presence there, teaming up with DeMarcus Lawrence to make edge, is going to do wonders for that defensive line.
Right, I hear you on everything. I agree. I'm pretty sure he's going to be the pick if he's there. We need to make sure that edge is good to go, especially with the loss of Quinn.
Yep.
I think it's a surefire pick. I know a lot of people are saying it's a boom or bust situation, but I don't see it that way. Really, the only thing that concerns me is injuries. He missed 2018 with a torn ACL and 2 games in 2019 with an ankle injury. So that's a little concerning. With the first round, you kind of want to make sure that you get a stud and you don't have to worry about anything, especially injuries. Kind of like how we're dealing with Van Der Esch's injury in his neck. That's something that teams knew about, and it seems to have come back to bite us. Hopefully it doesn't end his career short, but you never know. That's still kind of up in the air. But ACLs, it's something to look at, but I think the strengths outweigh the weaknesses. And then he's a winner. He's been on a winning team. He knows what it takes to win. He's a champion. I think it's a surefire pick. Okay. Anything else you want to talk?
A lot of people really want to get a cornerback or a safety, and a couple things on that. If a good cornerback's going to fall there and they're the best player available, they're probably going to be the pick anyway, because they need a cornerback too. But I'm just telling Cowboys fans ahead of time, if they look for a safety in the first, second round, don't get your hopes up. The Cowboys don't value safety as much as everybody else does. They signed Quentin Dix in the offseason as a point of reference and saying, we're not going to force ourselves to draft a safety. We got this guy who we can plug in as a starter. And if a safety happens to fall to us at a certain point, we get him then. The last time they took a safety high was Roy Williams, and that was back in 2003. All right, so they haven't had a high draft pick on a safety since then. Xavier Woods was a 5th round pick. I remember I had a 3rd round grade on him a few years ago, and the fact that he thought the 5th round was a blessing. If you look how good of a starter he's been, he probably was worth a 2nd round pick. But just if you're looking for someone like I don't know, like an Antoine Winfield Jr. or Kyle Duggar, you better hope they fall to the 3rd round, because I doubt they go safety in the 2nd, let alone the 1st round.
Right.
So, and also if you look at the edge rusher needs, I understand that they signed Alden Smith, and I understand Ray Gregory is going to put up a reinstatement, but those guys hadn't been accepted to play yet by Roger Goodell. They still haven't been approved to play yet. And one other thing is they both have 1-year deals. Ray Gregory's deal will end after this year if he played, and Alden Smith's deal is a 1-year deal also. So after that, you're looking at Tyrone Crawford is probably better to move inside, because he's going to be 30, and Armstrong can go back between left and right edge for a rotational piece. So right defensive end is becoming more and more of a need than people realize. And if Caleb Monchason is there, he should be the pick.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Armstrong is really the only guy that we can depend on. I know Crawford's had some injury problems as well, so I think it's a major need as well. But something I wanted to bring up was, you seem to have a lot of praise for Chason. What makes you think he's going to actually fall to the Cowboys? You don't think another team is going to take a shot on him earlier?
Well, the reality with this is that edge rushers are a premier position. If you look at the first round, the premier positions in the first round people will always look to first are quarterbacks, edge rushers, blindside tackles, typical on the left side, cornerbacks, and wide receivers. And in Caleb Chason's case, this year is not very deep at edge rusher. You got Chase Young, and there's like a gap, and then you got guys like Chason and I'm not even trying to pronounce his first name, but Gratos Moss from Penn State, AJ Epinesa from Iowa. Like, those guys are being mentioned in there, but none of those guys are guaranteed first rounders. Chason in a normal draft would be picked a lot higher, but if you look at the teams from 1 through 17, there's only 2 teams that I could see picking Chason based on a need, but they have higher needs. That's the Falcons at 16, but they have a much bigger need in the secondary.
Right.
And the other team would be someone like the Jaguars, especially after they trade Yannick Ngakoue. I doubt he plays for them this year, but Chason would be a nice little fill-in, a cheaper fill-in. But I think the Jags are probably more like going to go for a number 2 receiver to pair with DJ Chark, and also get a cornerback because their cornerbacks, Jalen Ramsey and AJ Boyer from the last 2 years, they're gone. They had no cornerbacks. So I expect Chason to be there because, lucky enough for the Cowboys, there's not that real threat from 1 to 16 in terms of a need. Some teams pick based on need. A lot of teams pick the best player available. I think it's one of those years that the Cowboys just get a great player that falls, which happens every year.
Right. Yeah, those are the 2 teams that I'm worried about, Jacksonville and Atlanta. I'm hoping that both of them go somewhere else or go with a different player is what I mean. Speaking of Atlanta and speaking of someone else, the next player that I want to bring up is CJ Henderson. The team that I think would snatch him up would be Atlanta right before the Cowboys. But if he did fall to us, I believe the Cowboys would jump to get him. I even think that they would get him over Chason. I think he would fit exactly what the Cowboys want to do. I want them to build up their secondary. I'm a big Belichick fan, and I think building up your secondary is how you win in today's NFL. I know we want to, get to the quarterback with our pass rushers, kind of stack them up as much as we can, and that's kind of what the Cowboys have been doing for the past couple of years, just trying to build up that D-line, and we kind of let the secondary just we didn't sign Byron Jones, right? He's arguably, a top 5 cornerback in the league, and we just kind of let him walk. So I think if Henderson is there, you pick him, you plug him in, and then you just go about your day. I know there are some critiques on him that he's not a good tackler, but he is probably the second best corner in the draft, maybe the third if you wanted to talk about Diggs, but I really like Henderson. He's played against elite talent in the SEC, and I think he'd be a great pick there.
About a month ago, C.J. Henderson seemed more like a likely pick than people thought. But more GMs have come out after all these mock drafts happened and said, hey, y'all got this all wrong. These players ain't going here. C.J. Henderson, a lot of people, like you said, is the second-ranked cornerback on a lot of people's list behind Jeffrey Okudah from Ohio State. I had C.J. Henderson in my cornerback rankings. I actually had him 5th, and part of that issue was his tackling. He's just not that great of a tackler. He's good, especially man-to-man coverage. He really is. But, in today's NFL, with passing being what it is, you're basically hoping that the cornerback just never lets a guy catch the ball. But the problem is, what happens when you put up C.J. Henderson up against a guy like Julio Jones or DeAndre Hopkins, and you say, okay, if he catches the ball, you got to tackle him, but he doesn't. He gets to that second level. That puts him in a bit of a bind. And so, again, I doubt he falls that low, but he is still very much an option. I can't say that it won't happen because great players fall all the time. Some players get overdrafted. Some players get underdrafted. It happens all the time. So it's very much a possibility, and I think you're right. I think if he's there, whether I like it or not, I think he would be the pick over Caleb Chason at 17.
See, I think that too, but what's more likely to happen, in my opinion, would be the Cowboys are going to end up picking whoever's there between the two. So one of them's going to be gone, right? I'm pretty sure the Falcons are going to make the pick for us. Whoever the Falcons don't pick, that's who the Cowboys are going to draft.
That's a good point. That's a good point because
our needs
picks
are
1
similar.
through 15.
So.
If you look at picks 1 through 15, a lot of those needs are going to be kind of filled by a lot of those great players. And I said earlier Chason would fall just because a lot of those teams need either quarterbacks or they need offensive tackles. You can say 4 or 5 of those teams need offensive tackles because they have young quarterbacks. Some of those teams need a cornerback. Some of those teams need an edge rusher. But in situations like this with C.J. Henderson, he could fall the way of Derwin James. I think the year Derwin James was picked, a lot of people thought he'd be a top 5 or even top 10 pick, and he fell all the way to 16 right before the Cowboys picked. So I picked 17 right before the Cowboys picked. And it could be another situation this year where a player that was ranked higher on a lot of people's boards just falls. And it happens every year.
Right. For me, I'm hoping it's Henderson. Probably not. Probably won't happen.
So you would have Henderson over Chason?
Yeah, I would. I just think letting go of Byron was one of the biggest mistakes we've made in a while, and we need a surefire cornerback. We need a number 1 cornerback. I don't think we have one on this team right now.
Right.
At least, the corners on the team right now did not prove that last year. You could have made the argument for Chidobe, but he seemed to regress. Actually, all of them seem to regress other than Jordan Lewis, but I'm pretty sure Jordan Lewis is going to be the slot.
Jordan Lewis is the only cornerback on their roster right now that I think if they had to go today, I think you could say would be the number 1 cornerback. I think, 1, he could play in the slot, and 2, he showed a little bit on the outside, but really he's just like the only playmaker they got in that secondary.
Right.
They have him rushing passes. They have him playing man-to-man on people. He was like he's if not the best cornerback they got, he is their most valuable cornerback in terms of like the plays he can make for them.
Right. He made the most out of all the opportunities that he got.
He did. If you look at 2017 draft, Taco Charlton's gone, right? So the only players they got left in that draft are all secondary: Jordan Lewis, Chidobe Awuzie, and Xavier Woods. And the only player I'd be comfortable saying would be back next year would be Xavier Woods. They love this guy. That he wouldn't cost that much. But I'm not so sure that the Cowboys would really want to bring back either Jordan or Chidobe unless one of them just balls out this year. But I'm not so sure. I think you're right that you'd be comfortable saying either one's the number 1 corner.
Right. And then one last thing on secondary before we move on. It's also going to depend on Mike Nolan, right? What his philosophy is. I know they're saying that, or there's a rumor that they want to do a multiple type defense. Before, in the old regime, Chris Richard.
Marinelli.
Yeah, but in the secondary, Chris Richard, he loved bigger sized corners, and I think that's why Jordan Lewis didn't get much opportunity because he didn't fit the mold that he wanted. But with this new coaching staff, maybe they'll let the talent shine and excuse him for being a little on the smaller side. That doesn't mean that he's a bad player. You got to put the talent out there when you have it. Okay, cool. Any last comments on Henderson before we move on?
No, let's go. Next guy, we're going to stick to the secondary. We'll go with Trayvon Diggs. You mentioned him, the cornerback from Alabama. Interesting note about him, he actually got recruited as a wide receiver. And in his sophomore year, he switched over to defensive back because I think he came in and saw, like, okay, I'm a good receiver. These guys are playing better than me. I'm going to go in. I had the mindset of a receiver playing defense, sort of like a la Richard Sherman. And this guy has like the size Chris Richard would like. He's about 6'2", 210, 215 almost. He's a big corner. The issue with him ain't tackling. He's a much better tackler than C.J. Henderson is. His issue is man-to-man coverage. A lot of the best plays he's seen on man-to-man coverage because the quarterbacks of the opposing team underthrew the ball. In the NFL, you're not going to get a lot of underthrown balls. These guys are starting NFL quarterbacks for a reason. And a lot of times he just make a play because he's able to get back to the ball. But a lot of the great quarterbacks, the Patrick Mahomes and Russell Wilson, will push the ball downfield. And if he's beat on man-to-man, that's going to hurt him. He's great in zone. There's no issue there. But I was a little surprised that they mentioned him as a possibility for the 17th overall pick because I would assume he probably would be there in the second round. But the more reports have gotten out there, people are talking about him being a first-round pick. And the fact that he would be there available at 17 overall, Chason's gone and Henderson's gone, and they say we're going to go cornerback.
Right.
And Diggs is the pick. Diggs would not be the worst pick in the world. I wouldn't hate Diggs. I know a lot of people don't like him because, like I said, that man-to-man issue. But I love his ability to tackle, and I love that he has that second chance ability in him. I don't like that he gives up the first chance. But if he was the pick at 17th overall, but it was because he was better than the other options there, I wouldn't have much of an issue with it.
Right, I agree. Diggs would only be the pick if Chason and Henderson are both gone. Maybe one other guy that we're going to talk about in a bit. You know, he fills a need. Again, I'm all about need. I know a lot of people are in the camp of taking best player available, but you know, we got to be realistic as well, and we have needs, and we got to fill those needs. I don't think he would be a bad pick. Maybe some would say he'd be a kind of a reach. Like you said, he's projected right now to go in the late first to second round. So theoretically, you could trade back if a team wanted to move up to 17, and he'd most likely still be there after the Cowboys pick. I don't really see another team that is begging for a corner. I guess maybe Minnesota, but you know, you could make it back. You know, you could do the old New England trade that we might talk about later. There's a tease for you, and you could probably still get him at 23. You can move to the second round and probably get him at the top of the second round and get an extra pick for you there. But
I'm just gonna tell you right now that his last year was his best season. He had about 3 interceptions. He had 8 passes deflected, a couple fumble recoveries. He was their number one secondary player, but went largely unnoticed, really, in that defense. And it mostly was because of Xavier McKinney, who a lot of people want the Cowboys to get. And like I said, they're probably not going to go safety at number 17. But Diggs really did have a solid season at the cornerback position. What's interesting, though, is that like he met with the Cowboys a couple times, and the belief was is that he would fit Mike Nolan's system. And the idea there is that would be that even if he's not the number one corner, they could develop him and let him play along with Chidobe and all that. I think they like his ability to tackle, something Byron Jones is very good at.
right.
But like I said, if they're going to play man defense, they have to have a safety shadow on him because he has. If you look at his film, he doesn't get beat every single time, but he has that tendency of getting beat off the line.
Right, and then he was third team Associated Press All-American and second team All-SEC after intercepting 3 passes. So he had a pretty good year. All right, so let's move on here. I got someone that I think we're both pretty interested in. His name is Justin Jefferson out of LSU, wide receiver.
Yep.
A lot of people are kind of rising on him. I've seen him. You know, you have the top 3 receivers, right? That everybody loves. Justin Jefferson is the guy outside looking in. What do you think? Do you think he's that 4th guy, or do you consider him right up there with those top 3?
I actually had him as my 3rd-rated receiver. I had him above Henry Ruggs.
Okay.
I know a lot of people love Henry Ruggs. I have no issue with him. I think there's a possibility that all of them can be Pro Bowlers. Justin Jefferson, though, what I love about him is his ability to go inside and outside from the slot to the X to the Y. You know, he ran a 4.45 at the combine, I believe it was. And a lot of people talk about the Blitnikoff winner, Jamar Chase, over LSU.
4.43.
Sorry, 4.43. And Justin Jefferson is a 6'3", 205 receiver who can go in and out. He was Joe Burrow's, you know, second option next to Jamar Chase, but he was just every bit as valuable and useful. You look at the Cowboys receiving core. After your Amari Cooper, after Michael Gallup, if either one of them goes down, who do they got? Cedric Wilson, I think, is a nice piece, assuming that he's healthy, because I was high on him when he was drafted. But this is his 3rd year, and he's got 5 catches to his name. You got Devin Smith, who's been injury-plagued his whole career. You got guys like Jonbea Johnson, who's on the practice squad. You know, you don't have a whole lot of options. If they went receiver with the 17th overall pick, saying, hey, we're going to build the offense for Dak. We're going to give him big, strong receivers inside and out. Justin Jefferson can go in and out the way Amari Cooper can, and say we'll build the defense in the later rounds. We'll take this guy there at 17. I'd be all about the pick. I love the pick. I would Justin Jefferson in this offense would thrive. You look at Dak. Dak depends on the slot receiver a lot because if the pressure breaks down, he looked at Randall Cobb, he looked at Cole Beasley a lot, And you'd want a guy that can get to the second level the way Randall Cobb could. But Randall Cobb had his worst year in terms of drops. Justin Jefferson has some of the best hands in the draft. Not the best hands, but some of the best hands in the draft. He's a really crisp route runner. And even though he didn't have the speed of Ruggs, he didn't have the I don't think he has the playmaking ability of CeeDee Lamb. And he doesn't have the route running crispness that Jerry Jeudy has. But he's right up there with them. And I think if you put him in the slot, he would do damage.
Agree 100%. I would love the pick as well. For me, if it wasn't Henderson, I would go with Jefferson.
Do you have Jefferson over Jason?
I do. The injuries on Chason just scare me. But speaking on Jefferson, I think he would destroy people out of the slot. He would easily get over 100 receptions, probably his freshman year, his rookie year. I mean, by missing Cole Beasley, Dak didn't. He was just dumping it down to Zeke, and I know that that's kind of what we want to do, but we don't really have a security blanket for him right now, right? It's just Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup on the outside, tight end. Who's going to be the tight end? I mean, we don't
Jarwin.
really.
Jarwin's the only receiver on the tight end. After that, they got guys that can block, and that's about it.
Right, but would he actually be a security blanket, or is he more of a deep threat down the seam kind of guy? We need someone.
He's a security blanket, but they need that slot guy.
Yeah, we need a slot guy to be able to go underneath, do a check down. Doesn't always have to be to the running back, and Jefferson would be able to do damage like that with McCarthy's offense. I don't know about you, but Jefferson kind of reminds me of a Greg Jennings. Greg Jennings. So yeah, I think he could really do some damage in the Mike McCarthy offense. I think he'd be a great pick, and I'm pretty sure he's going to be there. I don't really see another team in front of us jumping the gun to pick him, unless, like you were saying, you see him as your third receiver. Maybe another team sees that as well and picks him over Ruggs. CeeDee Lamb and Jeudy, I'm pretty sure those are the two top guys, and it'd be really weird for me to see Jefferson go before them, but I could definitely see someone picking Jefferson before Ruggs. So I guess really the only team that would do that would probably be Denver at number 15. But hopefully, I mean, okay, how about this? Just kind of throwing it out there.
Because Lamb and Jeudy are going to go to either the Jets, the Niners, or the Raiders in that sequence, unless one of them takes a tackle.
Right. Well, what if Tampa takes Jefferson?
Now, Tampa, if they're smart, they're like, okay, we got Godwin, we got Evans. Let's give Brady a blindside blocker. We'll get him a slot guy later on in the draft. Let's focus on building this team for this year and next year, going and putting all our assets on win now.
Yeah, because they got to go win now for sure.
On a slot, if they want to use that first pick on a slot, it's ridiculous because this draft is the deepest draft for receivers in about 7 years. They can get a KJ Hamler, or Brian Edwards, Courtney Davis later on, but focus on protecting Tom Brady first. And the Cowboys, they have their offensive line, they have their running back. They need that slot guy. The slot is the number one need on offense, not counting the center, but we're assuming they're going to let Joe Looney and Connor McGovern battle that out.
Right. The only thing that I would say knocks Jefferson a little bit was the offensive scheme at LSU this year, and obviously he had Joe Burrow, possibly an amazing quarterback. We don't know yet. We'll see how it translates to the NFL. So it could have been a combination of the offense and Burrow at quarterback, and we'll see how it works with the Cowboys and Dak Prescott throwing the ball to him. So, okay, any last words on Jefferson before we move on? Justin Jefferson.
No, that's it.
Cool. And the last guy here that we want to mention on our top 5 favorite draft prospects for the Cowboys pick at number 17 in the 2020 NFL Draft is Kenneth Murray out of Oklahoma, linebacker.
He's not necessarily a favorite pick there, but we do know that he had a great meeting with Jerry Jones and them. He fits the system. He'd be an ideal, heir to the Sean Lee throne at the outside linebacker position, or even he could fill in for Leighton Vander Esch if that injury doesn't hold up. The idea there is that they want guys that fit their system. They want guys that'll work all around the defense, especially if they want to flip between a 4-3-3-4 look. Boy, Mike Nolan can do that. I don't think this would be an ideal pick in the first round. Stephen Jones came out and said that linebacker probably isn't a priority. but that could be just a way of like trying to brush people off.
It's a smoke screen.
It's a smoke screen. It's a misdirect, whatever you want to call it. So I don't really take what they say out loud for granted until they make the pick and they say he was our guy from the start.
Right.
What Kenneth Murray does offer is he's very fast. He's a very fast off-the-ball linebacker who can get to the quarterback, can get to the running back in the backfield. Fun fact, like one of my favorite attributes about him was his ability to get to the running back behind the line of scrimmage. He had in his career, and I'm going to read it off for you, in 3 years he had 36.5 tackles for loss, and that was out of 325 total tackles. So he was Oklahoma's best tackler by far. I would have no issue if they're telling us that either Leighton Vander's injury is more serious than we thought, or if this was Sean Lee's last year for sure. And they're trying to build with a really strong Pro Bowl style linebacker core. If that's what they're doing, and they can try and value with those other positions we talked about later on, I'll have less issue with this pick. But if they're saying, hey, like that he was the best player available, but all those other guys or someone else from those guys we mentioned are available, I would have more issue with it.
Right. This pick would kind of be the same as the Diggs pick. I think they would go with Murray if Chason and Henderson are both gone and they don't want to go receiver. In that case, they'd be open to trading the pick and moving back, and then taking Murray with a later pick. Still in the first round, but moving back a little bit. I think Murray is out of all these, I think he's the safest of the picks that are the players that we've talked about. I don't think anyone's arguing that, there's a possibility that he could be a bust. For example, he earned third team Associated Press All-American and first team All Big 12 honors. He had 17 tackles for loss and 4 sacks.
Hold on a second. How easy is it to make a Big 12 Defense Player of the Year? I mean, the Big 12 doesn't have defense. Let's
Right. But he's still got those accolades. And then he was co-Big 12 Defensive Freshman of the Year. So I mean that's something, right? He's got a little bit to him. I'd be okay with the pick. I think out of all these, this would be the boring one, right? If they actually did it at 17, people would moan and groan. But you have to understand, if they do make the pick, then that tells me that there is concern about Van Der Esch. There is a very, very large possibility that Sean Lee, this is his last year, and they're just basically getting his replacement, although maybe Van Der Esch was going to be the replacement. Or, as you were saying as well, maybe they are going to move more towards a 3-4, and this is kind of the player they need to be able to do that. I've heard that they want to use Jalen as a pass rusher a lot more since he's got that speed to him. So Murray would be able to step in and take his role in the middle of the field while Jalen can scream off the edge. So I'd be okay with the pick. It wouldn't be exciting, especially there at 17. But if we made a trade to acquire more capital and move back, I wouldn't mind it. I'd be okay with it.
Yeah, I mean, if Murray is the pick, then they're telling us, okay, we're going to just like get every single need done after this. Because at 17, not only are you picking best player available, you're picking best player to fill a need that you desperately need to fill. And linebacker's not a desperate right now need to fill. Then, like you said, they're telling us that Leighton Vander's injury is worse than we thought.
Exactly.
Sean Lee's going to retire for this year. Like, they're planning for the future, which is fine to do.
Right. If they take a linebacker in the first round, they're saying, guys, we didn't tell anyone, but linebacker's actually a big need, so we need a linebacker.
It's a bigger need than we thought, right?
Right. So hopefully that's not the case, but we'll see what happens. Okay, well, those are the 5 prospects that we wanted to break down for you guys. We did want to, since we got a little bit of time left, did want to go over 2 surprise picks. I have mine ready here to gush over, but I'll let Shane take the first stab at it.
Yeah, this isn't really a pick that necessarily that I would want them to go, but this is more reports that I'm hearing. I'm hearing reports from Brian Broaddus and Todd Archer that another player that's moving higher and higher people's draft boards, and the player that the Cowboys are considering is cornerback from Clemson, A.J. Terrell. I watched him play, and I watched his tape, and he has the length. Like, he's about 6'1", 6'2", 190, so he got good size for him. The issue with him is he's kind of in that same range of like a Diggs Henderson issue. Like, he's not the greatest tackler, he's not a bad tackler, but like he gets beat on man more than Diggs does. I would rather Diggs than Terrell if they're both available and one of them was the pick, because even though he has the ability to make plays, he does. He has that playmaking ability that you like. He's able to swat the ball, catch the ball, cause a fumble. He has that ability in him. Too often you see him get beat on press man-to-man coverage, and then it's up to the safety to help him out. And even though the Cowboys have two solid starters at safety, you don't really want them to depend on that in the deep ball. You can get away with that in college because not every quarterback you're playing against is an NFL quarterback. And when you get to the NFL, every quarterback is there for a reason. They're starting for a reason. And so, obviously, A.J. Terrell is more of an upside pick than a ready-to-go pick.
Okay. I'm okay with it. He did get beat pretty bad in the national championship, so that kind of scares me a little bit. In the biggest game of the year, he didn't really show up. But what round do you think he would go?
He's probably gonna be a first-round pick. I see all the reports. I hear what I'm hearing. I don't want him to be the cornerback they take if it's gonna be a first-round cornerback. If that makes sense.
Yeah, right. Okay, cool. I mean, would you be okay with him if it was like a trade down situation?
So if it's not at 17, but they traded down or they got like an extra pick or two because they want to build assets, well then that's fine. Because at that point you're saying, okay, he's the pick, but we're going to get other players as well because we're going to fill all these needs. But we needed to get somebody. He was the best we had available. I don't think he's the best player available that'll be there at 17. But if he traded back, like let's say with, like you said, the Vikings or the Patriots, something like that, then fine. I have a lot less issue at that point.
Right. Okay. Cool. Well, I respect the pick, and we'll see if it comes to fruition. Okay. Now, my surprise here, and I would actually be maybe not 100% okay, but like 90% okay if this happened in the first round, and this would be a splash surprise pick. I don't know if it'd be a splash, but it would be a surprise pick. I'm talking about the wide receiver out of Texas Christian University, Jalen Reagor. Keeping it in Texas, just down the street, down I-20, and come over to Frisco, and well, I guess kind of Frisco, to Arlington to play for the Dallas Cowboys. He came in with a 4.47 40-yard dash, and I mean he's a beast, man. He did great at TCU with spotty quarterback play. TCU had a terrible year, but Jalen Reagor seems to be flying up draft boards. What do you think about him?
I think in a draft like this, where wide receiver is by far the deepest position, guys are going to fall farther than they would in a draft where that wasn't the case. If this is a draft where like there's only 6 surefire wide receivers, he would go first round. I believe, honestly, I think he's going to fall. I think it might be there at 51.
He might
for the Cowboys second round.
He
pick.
might if that if they did like a chase on in the first round and Reagor in the second. That'd be a happy draft, man.
Oh, I very much live with that. Reagor was my 6th rated receiver. I'm looking at my list right now. He was my 6th rated receiver. I had him as like a borderline first, like a high first, low second. So I guess I wouldn't necessarily mind if he picked him the first, especially if like those 4 guys are set, like I said earlier, Ruggs, Jefferson, Lamb, Judy, they're all gone. And like, okay, we're gonna go with Reagor. I wouldn't have much of an issue with it because, it follows that Justin Jefferson mindset that I brought up. Hey, we're going to take care of Dak first. Give him all the weapons he can handle. We're going to take care of everything around him, and then work on a defensive line in the later rounds. We're going to get value there. And in that case, I'm like, okay, I'm fine with the pick. But honestly, I really believe he'll be there in 51.
Hey, if that happens, I would be ecstatic. And he'll also...
I would send the card.
Right. Exactly. He would also fill right in at punt return and kick return. He's a creative returner with home run potential. So I would love to see that. Put a star on that man. He doesn't even have to move. He could stay at his house or wherever he's living at.
He can stay at his dorm.
Right.
He can stay at his dorm.
Okay, let's move on here. Those were our surprise picks. We'll see if that happens. I'm kind of excited now. Maybe we'll see Jalen Reagor in a Cowboys uniform. Right. Okay, let's talk about trades. The big trade, the one that is teased on Twitter pretty much every day, maybe even after the draft, you never know.
Mm-hmm.
But if it happens, how excited would you be if the Cowboys traded number 17 for Jamal Adams?
I'm going to tell you right now, I like all the players we mentioned, I like for different reasons. I like in different spots for whatever they are. Even the players I don't like as much as others, I would like them in later than I would at 17. If the Cowboys trade 17th to the Jets for Jamal Adams, they win. Because there's no player that'll be available, I don't care who it is, that'll be available at 17 that is going to be better or even close to the ceiling that Jamal Adams has and he's achieved. Jamal Adams, I think, is not only the best safety in the league, he's one of the best defensive players overall in the league. He fits in immediately at that safety next to Xavier Woods. The man is rushed. The man is covered. The man's played linebacker. He plays all over the defense. And they would own his rights for this year and his fifth-year option. They could work on an extension if they wanted to. I think, and it sounds to me like if he's going to continue to hold down in New York, he might not like it there. He might be getting frustrated. He might be saying, "Hey, I want to go to Dallas." Because I told people when this first popped up that he was interested in going back to Dallas. He showed interest, air quote. This is Earl Thomas 2.0. Earl Thomas for over a year was saying, "Hey, I want to go to Dallas." Everyone said, "Hey, bring him to Dallas." People wanted him, and the Cowboys going to get it done. But that was a money issue. This time they could get him just for a draft pick. And the Jets, they're looking to protect Darnold and get him weapons. If the Jets are saying, "Hey, we can draft an offensive lineman at 11, like Kai Becton, Andrew Thomas, whoever it is, we can trade with Dallas, give them this safety, and we can focus all our energy on taking care of Darnold. We can get him a receiver, which would be possible. They can get him a Ruggs or a Jefferson at 17.
Right.
And that gives the Cowboys the safety that they want. And that's a win-win for everybody.
Right.
If you look at that, if their safety room is comprised of Ha Clinton Dix, Xavier Woods, and Jamal Adams, you can use all three of those guys any way you want. They can play box, nickel, single high safety. All of them could do that. And at that point, cornerback is less of a need and one you can focus on day two. So I would be all about trading 17 for Jamal Adams. Send it in. I don't need to pick again. I don't care. Like last year, I didn't mind in that first round pick of Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper was absolutely worth the pick. Jamal Adams would, again, be absolutely worth the pick.
Right, 100% agree. Just looking at his career stats here, he has 12 sacks over his career.
Say it.
12 sacks as a strong safety.
Say it again. Say it louder.
12 sacks. 12 sacks. Now, there is one knock against him, and I know you've heard it. He only has 2 picks his whole career, NFL career.
Who cares?
Who cares, right?
Byron
you know how many
Jones
forced fumbles he has? He has 6.
Yeah.
6 forced fumbles.
Yeah. Byron Jones only had 1 interception. He was an all-pro. So that's interceptions are opportunistic. It's how you play from play to play. And he's been if not the best, one of the best players in the entire NFL, play by play.
Right.
Interceptions, I don't care.
Let me throw out 2 more stats real quick. Tackles for loss, career 28. QB hits, 23 QB hits in his career. 13 last year. 13. That's more.
Put a star on
That's
his
more
cap.
than a defensive end gets. Than the average, or probably below average defensive end. Out of the safety, your safety's getting that.
Yep.
So he'll change the game. He's a playmaker, a leader. He's exactly the kind of guy that you want on your team. Will it happen? Yep. Don't know. We've been waiting all year basically for this to happen. We don't want to be left out to dry with the Earl Thomas situation that kind of hurt. But this is a different situation, right? He's younger. He's not even in his prime yet. It would kind of be like we've drafted him basically, and we would have him forever. So I love it. I hope it happens. And last thing, right before we go, we got just a few minutes left. One last possible trade, the one that I think will most likely happen if we do a trade, would be New England moving up to 17. So the reason I say this is because let's say Miami does not go with quarterback at number 5, right?
Uh-huh.
So they're
sitting at 18 and then
right, they're sitting at 18. So New England's like, nope, you're not going to take either Love or Herbert, right? Whoever's left. So they'll jump up to 17 and take him. Take him. Do you think that would happen? Do you think that's a realistic scenario?
I think the likelihood of Love being there at 17 is a lot more likely than Herbert. I think Tua and Burrow will be gone. Herbert, some teams are cooled on. I've never really been all that high on him. I think he's a little more pro-ready than some of his other quarterbacks are, but just because you're more pro-ready doesn't mean you have this high of a ceiling. But I could also see the Patriots saying, hey, we're thinking strategically. Let's get this quarterback, so that Miami doesn't have him, because they're all in the same division. I think it is possible. I think if the Dolphins said, hey, we don't want to take a quarterback now, we want to pick a Derrick Brown from Auburn, or we want to take this Jerry Jeudy guy for our quarterback, or we want to take an offensive tackle like Mekhi Becton, Andrew Thomas, whoever. I could definitely see them going that route and then waiting for 18 to see whatever quarterback's available. But sometimes when you wait, other teams use that as an opportunity. And the Patriots have shown they're not scared to trade away players, trade away draft picks, even if it's just like for a 1 or 2 year rental. They don't care. They play each season as a season. Bill Belichick is known of trading players before they get too valuable and acquiring players just as they're getting good or using them any way that he can. So I think it'd be a very Belichick thing to do. But the only way you're going for 24-17 is one, to swap first round picks. I would also need a mid round pick and possibly another one for 2021. It's not going to cost 2 first rounders, 2 seconds, and whatever. It's gonna cost a swap of first. You're gonna get a day 2 pick and possibly a conditional 3rd pick either on day 3 of this year or day 3 of next year. And if you're the Cowboys and your top 3 guys are gone, like let's say Chase Young's gone, Henderson's gone, all these guys are gone, then take the swap.
Right.
Take the swap. Build assets. That's fine.
I agree, because pretty much everyone else that we're talking about, I am pretty sure they would be there at 23, or at least one of them would be there at 23. The reason I bring that up, jumping in front of Miami, is because I'm sure you remember Philly jumped us to get Dallas Goedert, and I'm pretty sure the Cowboys were targeting Dallas Goedert, and it seems like they did that on purpose. So I'm sure it would be a Belichick thing to do.
That'd have been a fun player to have in Dallas, having Blake Jarwin and Dallas Goedert as your tight ends. Dak Prescott, that would have been. I mean, they ended up getting Michael Gallup out of it, so I mean,
it worked
wasn't the worst thing in the world.
Right, it worked out.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, that'll wrap it up. We don't want to go too long, but thanks, guys, for listening to the return of Dem Boyz podcast. Again, you can find us on Twitter at Dem Boyz podcast. You can find me at Amorn Cup of Joe and Shane at Shane Carter TX. Make sure to like our Facebook page. That's where we'll have most of our updates on Facebook.com / Dem Boyz podcast. You will see cuts of this podcast chopped up in video format, both on the Facebook page and the YouTube page as well. YouTube, just search for Dem Boyz podcast and you'll find it. Any last words, Shanes, before we go?
How about them Cowboys?
Right, we're excited for Thursday. Hope to see you guys there on the Twitter sphere and cheering on the Cowboys and hoping that we get a valuable pick that will help us reach that Super Bowl this year. And I hope there's football this year. That's kind of the main thing. So pray for football and pray for the stop and the end of coronavirus. Okay, guys, have a great one. Thanks. Special thanks to Julio Carrillo for intro and outro music. Find him on Facebook and YouTube under Julio Carrillo Music.